Koreans make a lot of time travel TV shows and movies. There's a wide variety of hyper-specific subgenres for the viewers to choose from. First, we have the classic science fiction with futuristic tech. Then there are stories where the main character wakes up in their younger body to relive their youth. Or a version where a couple goes back to the past to find their lost spark again. Then there's the type of show where a girl goes back in time to save the guy she is in love with. Another notable subgenre I already talked about is historical K-dramas, in which a character from modern times falls into a body of water and gets transported all the way back to the past, or the other way around. A character from Choson travels to the future. And let's not forget all the time travel adjacent K-dramas with two characters who communicate with the past through a magical walkie-talkie, radio, or phone. Today, we're going to analyze two popular time travel K-dramas, My Perfect Stranger and Twinkling Watermelon. These are two very different shows that have an almost identical plot. In both of them, the main characters get transported back to when their parents met, so they can either try to prevent their mom and dad from dating, or to play matchmaker to make sure they do fall in love. The dad is always secretly a talented guitar player and singer, and the mom is an artsy shy girl who is getting bullied. The main character becomes their parents' new bestie and follows them in a super creepy but funny way. Both these K-dramas have a lot of the same themes and plot points. I'm not saying that these two shows are exactly the same. My Perfect Stranger is a murder mystery about two adults who travel back in time to stop a serial killer, and Twinkling Watermelon is a musical K-drama about high school students. Twinkling Watermelon came out after My Perfect Stranger, which is why I assumed that it deliberately fixed a lot of problems the first one made, but both of these shows came out in 2023, just a few months apart and on different channels, so they can't be referencing each other. But there are still a lot of uncanny parallels between them, and the different ways these two shows handle the same plot points is exactly what I want to discuss in this video. I want to start my analysis with a complaint. Neither of these two K-dramas have consistent time travel mechanics or clearly explain what the rules are. The last episode of My Perfect Stranger reveals how the male lead got the time machine. Plot twist: their future son created it so his dad can go back in time to meet his mom and prevent the event that would motivate their future son to build the time machine in the first place. Huh. That's a great example of the bootstrap paradox. Also, how did the son travel to the 80s when the time machine is already in 1987? Is there a second time machine? And how does time travel work anyway? Are there multiple timelines, or does the past get overwritten? And if it does, how come the protagonists can remember the original events? They have no idea whether their interventions worked, but newspaper articles are changed immediately. Can there be multiple versions of you at the same time? This is one of those K-dramas where we, the audience, are not supposed to think about these kind of details. I feel like the future son reveal was supposed to blow my mind, but instead it just contradicted the story. I hate it when screenwriters assume that viewers are not smart enough to see plot holes. At least in Twinkling Watermelon, time travel functions purely as magic. It's a fairy tale, there is no time machine to be concerned with. In online discussions, anytime I bring up messy time travel mechanics in K-dramas, or complain about characters not using their future knowledge to their advantage, I always get negative comments in response about how I'm overthinking it. In this fandom space, pointing out a time travel paradox is not appreciated. And I really don't agree with the notion that talking about whether the basic premise of a story makes sense is somehow doing too much. I'm not the one who decided to introduce a time machine into the plot. From the point of view of the "it's not that deep bro" viewers, none of these questions and inconsistencies are important, because that's not what these shows are about. This K-drama subgenre is about healing your family relationships. Time travel is not a physics problem that needs to be solved, it is a fantasy plot device that lets characters do the impossible, meet their parents while they are the same age as the protagonist. The point is to get to know your mom and dad as individuals with their own dreams and problems, and not just see them as the people who tell you to go clean your room. What were your parents like in high school? What were they dreaming about before they became just your parents? Would they have been better off if you were never born? Time travel is a way for protagonists to understand decisions their parents made when they were young and forgive their past mistakes. It is a chance to fix the relationship and let go of the resentment about everything they supposedly did wrong. What if instead of being mad at your parents' choices, you could support and guide them? What I don't like about these two K-dramas is that for the plot twists to work, the protagonists have to not know a lot of very important details about their own families. Mind you, nobody here is an orphan. In My Perfect Stranger, the female lead has an aunt she didn't know existed, and she also didn't know that she was murdered by a serial killer in a famous case. She was also not aware that her mom liked reading. How does she know nothing about her mom's life? The male lead, who assumed that there are no surprises in his family's past, was also caught off guard by his own backstory. In Twinkling Watermelon, the main character, who was super close with his loving parents, was shocked to learn that his dad was not born deaf and that, apparently, his mom had a rich abusive family? I think if I traveled back to the 80s when my parents met, I would not encounter surprises like this. But I guess this is the exact arrogant attitude a character in a K-drama would have before they get transported back in time to be proven wrong. Am I about to find a time machine? If I do, I will try to financially secure my parents' future, something main characters in time travel K-dramas also do. Liberating your mom so she can pursue creative work without worrying about money in the future is a big theme in these shows. In My Perfect Stranger, the daughter always thought that her mom was super uncool and a bit embarrassing. If only she was a talented writer like her boss. When Young travels to the past, she finds out that her mom is the one who wrote that book. Her boss plagiarized her work. The female lead helps her mom to stand up for her rights and secures her status as a successful novelist. She also saves her mom from getting bullied and helps her become a confident woman who believes in herself. In Twinkling Watermelon, the mom is also a creative girl who is not getting the support she needs. The male lead teaches her sign language and calls out the abuse from her evil stepmom. That way, she gets to keep her dad's wealth and ends up living a soft life doing interesting work instead of hard physical labor that doesn't pay well. The male lead's mom in My Perfect Stranger abandoned him as a baby, and part of his hero's journey is about figuring out why she did it. He ends up respecting and understanding her motives for leaving and doesn't reveal his identity. She is free to live her life as she wants, even though she already did the same thing originally. This seems like a great resolution, but the fact that he doesn't tell her that he's from the future reveals an invisible misogynist thread that runs through the whole show. Have you noticed that in My Perfect Stranger, women and men get to interact with time travel differently? For men, time travel is cool retrofuturist technology that they get to discuss with each other. The male lead has a time machine car that was made by his son in the future. When the car breaks in the past, he asks his dad to fix it. He gets to talk to both his son and his dad about time travel. He also reveals to his grandpa and the cop that he's from the future. Time travel is a generational hobby passed on to men. But women don't get to talk about time travel to each other. Young doesn't tell her mom or any other woman who she really is. It's like the Bechdel test but for time travel. Do two female characters get to talk about time travel to each other? My Perfect Stranger does not pass that test. The male lead also doesn't tell his girlfriend a lot of important details about the events he's trying to prevent, even though it directly impacts her life. He doesn't tell his mom that he's from the future. Women don't need that kind of information, let the man handle it. Why is time travel pointlessly gendered in this K-drama? Hejun also doesn't tell his girlfriend about the future son's existence or where the time machine came from. Oh cool, now he has an advantage of knowing important reproductive details about her future, but she doesn't get to know this. He definitely wanted the time machine all to himself. Twinkling Watermelon has more gender equality in the way time travel is distributed, but talking about it is still mainly for boys. Han Gyol tells his dad he's from the future, which Vedad does not believe. He views it as their little inside joke. The male lead doesn't tell his mom about any of this. She doesn't get to choose whether she thinks time travel is real. But the female lead in this K-drama does reveal she's from the future to her mom in the end, but she also barely interacts with her family otherwise. Her mom is not even in Korea. She briefly watches what her dad does at work that one time, and she didn't know the grandpa existed. For a show about getting to know your family, she has very few interactions with the family. I'm also not sure why she needed to travel back in time to gain these insights into her parents' backstory. Most of the clues she needs come from flashbacks of talking to her mom. Time travel was not necessary. All she had to do is think really hard about it in the present to learn the same lesson. She also doesn't need to change anything in the past for her family because they're already rich. The male lead has a super intense relationship with both of his parents, and the female lead is just on her own. Her family is not even that important to the plot. Yoon gets to do way more with her mom. In My Perfect Stranger, the male lead comes to the past fully prepared. He has already done in-depth research about the serial killer. He has a computer and a laptop and copies of police documents from the future. He also interviewed several of the people involved in the case. He took care of the money question in advance and organized a place to live. He chose to travel to a specific time and place with his own time machine. But for the female lead, time travel comes as a complete shock. She accidentally ends up in the right spot and gets transported to 1987 without understanding what is happening. She has no resources and has to rely on the male lead, who keeps important information from her for no reason. Actually, no, there is a reason. There are 16 episodes and they have to space out all the cool reveals to keep the show interesting. In Twinkling Watermelon, the miscommunication trope makes more sense. They literally don't know that they're both time travelers for a long time and start sharing information with each other once they figure it out. The who is prepared for time travel and who is not dynamic is also reversed in Twinkling Watermelon. The male lead is the one who arrives without current money or any other useful items. He's briefly homeless because he doesn't have a place to live in 1995. The female lead, on the other hand, arrives with a suitcase full of stuff and moves into her fancy family home that is conveniently empty at the moment. She also gets a way better deal from the magical shop owner, who gives her money that she can use right away. In this show, the girl has the better starting point. Time travel itself also works the same way for both leads in Twinkling Watermelon. A mystic instrument shop magically appears, they get sent on a journey to the past, and the shop owner gives them cryptic advice that doesn't help. But in My Perfect Stranger, for the female lead, time travel seems like magic. In a sad moment, she wishes to go back in time, and then she just happens to be in the same spot as the male lead. She's not even inside the time machine, he just hits her with a car, and that is close enough to count, so she also gets transported to the past. For her, time travel is destiny, while for the male lead, it is a deliberate plan that he was able to execute because of his access to future technology that literally came with a manual. In both these K-dramas, the time travelers are preoccupied with preventing various murders, accidents, and injuries from happening. In the original timeline in My Perfect Stranger, the female lead's uncle, the dad's older brother, got beaten up by the cops so badly that he ended up disabled for the rest of his life, requiring a lot of care in a wheelchair. The dad also got injured and never treated his leg, which is why he has a limp as an adult. This show implies that this fate made him into a bitter man and a bad father. He is responsible for taking care of his brother, which is why he became an alcoholic who neglects his wife and daughter's needs, I guess? The protagonists manage to successfully prevent the uncle's injury, and in the final episode, when they can check whether the changes worked in the future, the uncle and the dad are both able-bodied, and their quality of life increased significantly. I get that they are fixing the injustice of police brutality by exposing it to journalists, but in this K-drama, disability is a problem that is fixed by never happening in the first place. The most charitable, good faith interpretation of this plotline is that police brutality has a devastating trickle-down effect on the victim and everyone around them. Caring for a disabled family member while also being disabled yourself in a system that does not provide much assistance does sound exhausting. The most damning and dark reading of this plotline is that disability is the one thing that was ruining everyone's life. If it wasn't for the uncle in a wheelchair, he would have been a great dad, and they would have all been rich and happy. Ugh, this feels icky. I do not like this subplot. Have you tried not being disabled is literally the proposed solution. I don't think the screenwriter thought about the implications of fixing disability. This was probably meant to be read as a wholesome alternative happy ending that the viewers shouldn't think about for too long. Twinkling Watermelon offers a way better exploration of this topic. The male lead is a coda, a child of deaf adults. His parents and his brother are all deaf and use sign language. Hangul is the only one in their family who can hear, and it has always been his role to connect his family to the rest of the world. Before he travels back to 1995, the show takes its time to explore what it's like to have so many responsibilities as a minor. He loves his family and they have a great relationship, but taking care of your parents is a lot. He just wants to live his own life for once. The discrimination and the hardships the family faces are explored in this K-drama with nuance and compassion. We also get to see various cool aids the family uses in their daily life. When the male lead travels back in time and meets his young dad, he finds out that apparently he can talk and hear, even though his dad always told him he was born deaf. Eun-gyeol realizes that there's going to be an accident, so naturally he tries to prevent it from happening. But time travel works in mysterious ways, and not all events can be changed. Some things are destined to happen either way. But dad still ends up losing his hearing, even though the original accident was prevented. Except this time around, he and his friends already know sign language. The mom's disability can't be fixed either, because she really was born like this. Her problem was the cartoonishly evil abusive stepmom who forbade her from using sign language. Her family is so infuriating. Instead of giving her all the tools she needs, that they can easily afford, they refuse to acknowledge that she is disabled. The male lead is the first person who stands up for her. He convinces her family to let him teach her sign language and help her at school. Eun-gyeol also exposes the evil stepmom's crimes and helps the dad heal the relationship with his daughter. The future is changed by fixing the attitude towards disability and improving the support system. In Twinkling Watermelon, disabled characters themselves don't need to be fixed. The plot of both these K-dramas culminates in the last episode, when we finally get to see how the future changed and whether it was worth it. Both shows have a happy ending. Everyone is infinitely better off compared to the first episode. In My Perfect Stranger, the female lead is now working as an editor for her mom, who is a successful novelist. The dad has a bar with an insane record collection, and they all live in an expansive house with high ceilings. Her parents are also still in love with each other in this timeline. In Twinkling Watermelon, both parents end up getting a great education and living a lavish lifestyle. They become heirs to the grandpa's musical instrument empire. They both have successful careers, and nobody would dare to discriminate against them. This time around, they're also super supportive of their son's music career, so he no longer has to live like Hannah Montana. Both K-dramas have a wholesome conclusion in which everyone is super rich and happy. But it poses another problem. Changing the past has zero negative consequences for the future. In both shows, the protagonists spent a lot of time worrying whether they had altered the timeline in an unpredictable way, but they actually didn't need to worry because the stakes were incredibly low this whole time. None of the changes have any negative effects on the future, meaning that the original timeline was the worst possible version of events that can only be improved. In the worst case scenario, the bad thing still happens, so nothing changes. In the best case scenario, the problem is fixed, which significantly improves everything down the line with no downsides. There are a few scenes in both these shows where the protagonists get hurt or are briefly in danger, but it doesn't affect the timeline. The only bad outcome that I can think of in both these shows is the fact that this guy is murdered. I don't think he died originally. But they also save a lot of people's lives, so the overall outcome is still a net positive. Plus, he was an unlikable side character anyway. For the protagonists, altering the timeline only ever works in their favor. It doesn't matter if you interfere with your parents' dating history. Everyone who was meant to be a couple always ends up together, and they still have genetically the same children that are born at the exact same time as originally, even though their lives are changed drastically in every other way. Love and destiny override the butterfly effect of time travel. Even when changing the past offsets your parents meeting for the first time by several years. The whole time travel not having any negative consequences thing also kinda contradicts the theme of these two K-dramas. Remember how learning to respect your parents' choices was an important lesson? Yeah, turns out they did fuck it up, and everything was easily fixable if only you were there to help. So, I guess the parents did make all the wrong choices, and the main characters were correct for judging them. Or maybe this is an unfair critique, because the protagonists do have the advantage of knowing specific details from the future. In both shows, time travel has a lot of questionable implications, but overall, I think Twinkling Watermelon handled the story better, even though, personally, I like thrillers way more than musical shows. This K-drama did the impossible and fixed some of the plot holes and problematic plotlines from My Perfect Stranger. Considering that these shows aired only a few months apart, the only logical explanation is that the screenwriter has a time machine and was able to go back and edit the script for Twinkling Watermelon before My Perfect Stranger ever aired, which proves that time travel is real.